Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. How's the weather where you are?
Cold.
Yeah.
We actually had a bit of snow this morning. I know northern of the province had like 5 feet of snow.
Yeah, you're in New Brunswick, right?
I am, yeah. And you're in Ontario?
Yeah, yeah. I went to New Brunswick a few summers ago and it was like the best trip of my life. It was beautiful there.
Oh, I'm so fun. Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Yeah. I'm originally from Montreal and I moved here 2 years ago and yeah, fell in love with the province. I'm very much a nature person. So New Brunswick is like, I think I read in my hiking book, it's like 80% forest. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's
Absolutely loved
beautiful.
it there.
Oh,
The goal
fantastic.
is to ultimately move there, but yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's amazing.
For everyone tuning in, this is Chelsea. Did you want to do a little bit of an introduction on yourself?
Sure. So as I already mentioned, I'm living in New Brunswick right now from Montreal. I graduated rec therapy 2 years ago, and now I'm working in neuro rehab facilities. So I'm working mainly with inpatient adults who have, so ages from 18 till, people in their 90s, people who have had spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, stroke, MS, any complex neurological disorder, we take them. So
That's
that's
awesome. That's a really big age
what
group
I
too.
do professionally. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And like I said, like I said a little bit about me outside of my work, I'm definitely a lover of nature. Like I said, with New Brunswick, I kind of fell in love with it because I'm just loving the waterfalls and the hikes, and that's kind of what rejuvenates me. So that's a
that's
little bit
awesome.
about me.
That's awesome. I
Yeah,
guess you kind of get to take rec therapy outside of your job too, then, right? Lots of canoeing and
100%.
yeah,
I've been trying to, especially lately in the last year or so, trying to practice what I preach. It's been much needed.
yeah. I think that's one of like the hardest parts of being a rec therapist is like it's both the hardest and the easiest. Like you know all of the really great things that you can do for yourself and things that bring you fulfillment, but then trying to like implement it into your own life. It's like, what do I even like to do? Like spend so much of
Right.
my time helping other people, right? That's awesome.
Totally. It's funny, I actually shared with some of my clients where, those who come in where work was their life or leisure was really not a part of their life. I have a leisure battery I usually use that kind of brainstorms things for people. And I actually, when I first started my job there, I was like, let me do this for myself. Like, what are my answers in this leisure battery? And it was actually really helpful for myself, right? To, see what I'm in. I mean, I already know myself pretty good, so I already knew some answers. But, I encourage other rec therapists or anybody in the profession, that gives assessments and stuff, like, know your answers and
Yeah,
where you would struggle in that assessment, because then it helps you like trying to guide somebody in that assessment as well.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I just finished up my college diploma. And one of my last courses that I took was an assessment course. So we had to kind of go through those same leisure diagnostic batteries. And I remember going through the different domains, like, okay, like where do you think that you score as far as like your social and in my head, I thought that I was doing like super, super great. But when you see it on paper, you're like, maybe there's some areas that like, I need
Exactly.
to dig into more. So yeah, 100% like do those assessments on yourself too. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely. Oh, I see someone's asking. I'm from in New Brunswick. I'm in Fredericton. So somebody's just asking where in
Yeah.
New Brunswick.
And Fredericton is kind of, it's a bigger town area, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, so it's the capital of New Brunswick, but I mean, it's still relatively small, it's 90,000 people.
Wow.
So for the capital of a province, it's still relatively small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my first questions was, when did you get involved with recreation therapy? I know that you said that you just graduated 2 years ago, but was it before that, or when did you get involved with rec?
Yeah, so before even knowing what rec therapy was, I actually got involved in a long-term care facility in their recreation department. I knew I wanted to work with seniors. At that time, I was like, I just love the connection I can build with seniors. So I started volunteering, and then I got a summer job, and then fell in love with just facilitating activities and just providing that meaningful leisure. Again, I had no idea what TR was, so I was like, this is great. And then for those who do follow me, I did share like a little bit of how I discovered it. So I went to an open house. I went to Concordia University,
Okay.
and they had an open house, and I saw one of my now professors and introduced me to TR, and everything he was explaining what it was, I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted, because I really didn't want to go deep into, yes, I want to help people, but I really didn't want to go to the realm of like nursing.
Right.
I really didn't want that kind of hands-on help. I really just wanted to help people for their quality of life, right? Not that nursing doesn't do that, but I just didn't enjoy the hands-on experience.
And
Um, yeah. Kudos to the nurses.
right.
Um, yeah, and then so I literally, once I got home, Googled it up a little more, saw the process to sign up, and I registered for the course. And from
Yes.
there, I just fell in love with the profession and just the people that it attracts. Like, it's just such a small community as well. Like, as a student, it was just great, because I just really got to know my professors so closely.
Yeah.
Like, they were so helpful, and even, my friends from that I met there at university, like, we're still best friends, and yeah,
It's such a great
all
community.
good things to say.
Yeah. I feel like everyone's like, wow, like you really, really love rec therapy, and everyone seems so happy with it. And it's true, like it's such a great profession to be a part of, and everybody that I meet that is a recreation therapist is just such a nice person, and everyone has so much love to just give, and yeah, like
Totally.
even professors and stuff, they're just so willing to give their time and really invest that understanding for their students, right? I know that Justin asked a question. I just want to grab it. Justin says, how can I start searching for part-time jobs or volunteer that are TR focused?
Mm. I would, because I know, Justin, you're a fellow Concordian in Montreal. So I always encourage, us talking right now, just saying how great our professors are to help us. They're a great resource, right? Because if you're a student, you don't really know who's practicing TR or who's graduated that's practicing in the area, but they still have those contacts, right? I still get contacts from current TR students that, professors direct them to me to kind of discuss whatever questions they have. So I would say ask professors, ask the people that that are practicing or are in the field, and it's all about connections, right? As much as you have great, I think that was mentioned even earlier in another live that you just had with Chris, that it was all about the networking you make. And I think any experience that you want is really through that, is ask away, just saying you want that TR experience, who can you contact? And I think that's kind of the best way to go, especially during COVID where you can't really show up to facilities anymore, because that's how I started volunteering. I just showed up at the front door, gave my resume. It's like,
I love that. Take it or leave it, right?
100%. So that's my suggestion. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, Chris and I were talking a lot about connections in different communities, and I think I'd made the point, if you don't know something, you probably know somebody that does, and Google is always your best friend as well, generally speaking. I know that you mentioned, yeah, for sure. I know that you mentioned you're working in the rehab center. What kind of programming are you running? Like, I know that it's kind of a wide age gap, so it would kind of depend on who you're working with, but especially with COVID, like what does your programming look like?
Yeah, definitely. I can give you an idea pre-COVID and then COVID times, because it is very different. So pre-COVID, so we normally, like I said, I do inpatient adults, so we normally have 18 beds. My caseload is usually 14, 15 clients, and my teammate, she's part-time, so she takes the rest. And so that being said, normally we'd be able to do small groups. So we would normally have a weekly group with our speech language pathologist, and it would be a breakfast club group. And so we have our own adaptive kitchen, so people who would want to have, that social interaction, then I would be there to facilitate the group, or the other rec therapist. And the speech language pathologist there is there to help people with communication goals, as well as swallowing goals, given that it's a breakfast, the group is during breakfast. And if people had cooking goals, the OT would work with the client to make the food ahead of time. And so it's very interdisciplinary. So I love that group. We've adapted it now, COVID, because we have to keep our masks, we have to be socially distanced. So we're still doing the group I'm still doing it with the SLP, but it's just discussion group at this point. And we would normally, something I miss so much is our community outings. So we're lucky enough to have our own adapted van. And so we would normally do at least one outing as a group. And then if people had other community goals, then we would just go one-on-one using either the van, or we have accessible taxis in the community. So if somebody is in that area that, adapted taxis are available, then we would use that to just kind of make them practice of what that experience is like and what to look for. That's
awesome. A really wide range of different programs that you're able to offer. Yeah,
definitely. And sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, like, most of our interventions I would say the majority are one-on-one. They're very individualized goals. But if I find that some people have similar goals or have different goals, but I'm using the same activity, then I put them together. Like today, for example, because it's a bilingual province, so unfortunately, sometimes we have really, like right now, the majority of our clients are Anglophone, and I only have a few clients that are Francophone, so they don't get to benefit from the group context, right? Because of that language barrier. And so when that happens, I try my best to see if there's anything in common with language, like the French people, or vice versa. But so like today, I have a client who had a stroke, is a left hemiplegic, and he's older, and his main pursuit is playing cards with his family. And so using one hand, and also his thought processing is really is a lot slower. He has some neglect, and so we've been working on that a lot.
Okay.
And then I have another francophone client who she had a spinal cord injury, so she's a quadriplegic, and so her hands got affected. So luckily, she's an incomplete spinal cord injury. So for those who don't know what complete or incomplete injuries are, is for a spinal cord injury, so let's say she has a C5 spinal cord injury and it's complete, the level of function that she has stays as is. So even in her rehab, she's going to improve because rehab is needed. So she'll still have some recovery, but it won't be drastic. Versus an incomplete, injury is you still have that. Depending on what level of incompleteness, which we use the ASIA scale. Depending where you're at on the ASIA scale, then it determines your level of functionality you can get back.
Right.
So anyways, she's incomplete, so she's been trying to work on her grip, and it's really hard for her to use her fine motor skills, and so even just the simple thing of shuffling cards, holding cards is really difficult. So and they're both francophones, so I ended up doing that, and it was great. Sorry, I think I was lagging a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just they have different goals, but I'm using the same activity to achieve different goals, and so it worked out.
Do you guys have a lot of access to like different mobility, things for programming that might help with different disabilities? Like I know you're talking about the cards and trying to navigate through different ways of making those goals come true. So I was thinking, like, do you have those card holders or the slots that you can put your cards into you?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, we use all of those like today.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
So actually, we had actually I shared it on one of my. I started doing TikTok. So people have been asking, like, what does a day in like a rec therapy, like in your day, like at work look like? So I started trying to do TikToks about it. And I actually shared one wooden, like one-handed card shuffler. Yeah. And so one of my clients is using that, given that he only has the use of one hand. Right. And we have a variety of card holders. Like, it's really based on the person's preference. So we were actually trying those out. We had automatic card shufflers. I actually had all of that out today because it was the first time me showing one of my clients that. So you have no choice but to adapt, right? So the whole goal is, I think that's one of the things I love about rec therapy too. It's like, it's not focused on what's wrong with you. It's really, what can you do? All right, let's find a way, right? Because the last thing that people want is being told what they can't do, or just feeling, I know with my clients, they go through so much frustration, a lot, right? Because they have goals they want to achieve, and it's a hard time. So us as clinicians, once they enter the room, we have to have everything ready to show them, like, if one thing doesn't work, okay, like, what's the next thing you can work on?
Yeah. It's amazing how many different adaptations we can make to, something so small as playing a game of cards, just for someone, to find that independence and really, like, find purpose in things that they used to love, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, can you tell me about a time where an activity that you planned didn't go exactly how you thought it would? And speaking of, adaptations, how did you fix the situation to make it more successful? I guess today is a good example though, but
There's no, but like there's so many.
right.
I think it's like I always ideally when you start off, you really have your fingers crossed and you
Yeah.
obviously want to be so successful, but there's so many variables of things to go wrong, or just, you know, what I realized too is what you might think or what I might think went terribly wrong. It's just a change of plans at the end of the day. Like
Right.
some clients have no idea what to expect coming into a session. So it's really, I noticed that about myself is just like, I noticed I was just putting the pressure on myself, and it was
100%.
actually a successful intervention. It's just, they didn't know I adapted. So, I mean, it's just so many things. I just realized I need to plug my phone.
Okay.
I'm just gonna
Oh, go
plug
ahead.
my phone sorry, I'm just gonna plug my phone as I go. But I mean, a lot of the adaptations I've done over the years, I've noticed it's mostly in long-term care that I've had to do it. Working with people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
Given that, you know, their mood and just how they are throughout the day is so variable. And so, for example, I know so many times I led groups that were, you know, they were meant to be, you know, physically based on for physical activity. So,
Right.
you know, leading stretches and having music on, but so many times that it was just overstimulating for people.
Right.
And some people just didn't want to be around others. And, you know, you have to be conscious, like mindful of relationships that happen among participants as well. So that's the tricky part sometimes, is you're not up to date. So one day they might, you know, be best friends, and then who knows, at breakfast one day somebody threw juice, and you know, that was the end of the world. So
Yeah.
it's really tricky. So a lot of the times I plan for individual sessions. So sometimes part of the physical activity, most of the times my go-to would be like, all right, well, our exercise is walking to your room. And so I would walk to their room, you know, one by one, and then just see what the person needs at that point.
Right.
And
Constantly
a lot of
evaluating.
times, sorry?
Just constantly reevaluating, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I use a lot of technology in my current job too. So a lot of the times it's just technology is not working out. And that's like,
Yeah.
I just get so frustrated by that. But, you know, we adapt, and I always just have, things nearby that I could just pick up that work on similar thinking skills, or, you know, whatever they'd be working on.
It's always good to have that like mental plan in the back of your head. Like, okay, like I know that this is, you know, it might not go 100%, but I know I can pull this up after, or have this game on the side or something, right? But it's so funny that you make the comment about like relationships and different friendships that, you know, develop between clients, because like the amount of times where, you know, I'm not caught up to speed on like who's friends with who, or like, you know, he just broke up with me this morning, and situations like that. And I'm like, oh, I just put you guys in the same group, and now I have to do an activity with you for the next 30 minutes. Awesome. Okay, this is what we're doing today. No, we're not going to fight right now. Let's just get on with it. Yeah, so it's just those things that you just never plan for.
And I think that's what makes us, you know, really great facilitators, right? Like that's what we're trained for, is sure, yes, facilitating a group, but you realize there's much more that comes to just, you know, what looks easy to facilitate a group. There's so many other components involved that people don't realize. So I think that that's what makes us really good at what we do, is because we are good mediators, you know, and good at facilitating groups. So even when we're throwing those little things,
It
we
looks
can
so
adapt.
good though. So good on a plan.
Yeah, yeah,
Facilitate it, and it's like, nope, not having it today, not doing it.
totally, totally.
Grab Justin's comment. I think it's way up here. Is it possible to work with young children in TR? Because I'd love to work with kids with autism, for example.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can work in any population. It's a wide range of clientele you can work with. So it's possible to work with any population.
Yeah. That's the one thing about TR is that you can literally take it anywhere, work anywhere, and justify your reason for being there, and hopefully they have a job.
Totally. Yeah.
Or you can just show up at their door, apparently. So
Exactly. Well, that's it too. Sometimes people have no idea what rec therapy is. So oftentimes, if you show up at a job, and you know, I've heard this a lot, and I always suggest this to students or whoever is looking for a job, is even if it's not a rec therapy specific, and I think it goes for any job, is even if it's not the specific title you're looking for, and you show your skill set and you show that you can actually, you know, make an impact on the clients, they'll make a point to keep you. And you know, that's been my experience, is even if it's in Quebec too, when I worked there, it was, you know, so many different titles, right? So people would go to CEGEP and get an activity worker diploma, and where providing activities is great, it's just it's not backed up with that therapeutic tool that we normally would approach it with. So oftentimes that's what I've done, is just like take that activity coordinator job, show my skill set, and then they switch the title, and you want your, you know, you want your credentials to be recognized, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm laughing, but I 100% agree. Like the title recreation therapist has to come from somewhere. So whether you're the person that kind of puts your foot in the door and, you know, kicks things into gears, then, you know, sometimes things just get that way. So
Totally.
There's one question. Did you have a hard time finding work in New Brunswick?
Oh, no, that's actually why I'm here. I actually I moved to New Brunswick for the job I have right now, actually.
Wow.
So I networked the crap out of my time as a student. I attended the two last CTRA conferences. And so one was in Halifax and one was in Quebec. So I was lucky enough to be part of the planning committee. And so I just networked. And actually, that's it. And one of the women I networked with is my now coworker. So she reached out to me saying her coworker was leaving, she was retiring. And so I applied, and here I am. So it worked out for me. Yeah.
All right. Mental notes for my next endeavor. What has been the biggest success that you've been able to be a part of?
I have a lot. Like,
go for it.
I'm very much like an optimistic person, and so oftentimes it's the little wins for me. Like with my current job, when clients get discharged, we always have 3-month follow-ups, and so it's a great way to see how they're doing, if they have any specific inquiries and stuff. So oftentimes, like, a success for me is I know it's not all due to me because we're a huge team and it takes a village. So I know it's not all because of me, but when I see that they're living a good quality of life and they found ways to fulfill their time, I'm like, yes, okay,
I know I
good.
did that, right?
Yeah. But one that really has always stuck with me is working in long-term care. And I had a client. He was very quiet and just did not engage with anybody.
Right.
And it was that typical scenario where I say typical because I've seen it a lot, where it
Yeah.
was the children that were like, he needs to be engaged, he needs to participate in all these things. And it's like, but he wanted none of it. Like he's just like, no, like every time I would approach him, he's like, I want none of it. Like, this is their wish, this is not me,
Yeah.
just listen to me, please. And so I listened to him. I stopped inviting him, but I took a point to just talk with him because he didn't mind one-on-one conversations. It wasn't the warmest, friendliest conversations, but it was making a point of building that rapport. And after a couple months, he just got out of a shell. Like he started, I would just kind of throw things out there of groups I'm leading, and he's like, maybe I'll just sit. I was like, just stand in the door frame if you want. But I was like, you don't know what you don't know. Maybe you might like it and join in, And I just saw a complete shift in him. Like he just opened up, and the person he wouldn't be like the person going to all the group events and stuff.
Right.
Like that's still part of his personality of not loving them, but he was just more open to it. And his I got to have a really good relationship with his children, and they were just forever grateful that they were just understanding now of like, okay, yeah, I guess we realize like that's just not him, but at least he's grateful for that connection he has now that you've built. And he he feels more confident of he's not saying no because he's miserable. He's saying no because he genuinely doesn't want to. And I think
Right. Right.
people need to know that difference, right?
That's
Um,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
One of the things that Chris and I were talking about too is that I think oftentimes when we're students and as soon as we get out of school and we get our first job and we start helping clients, we're like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I change your life? Without really like looking at that person like, hey, what do you actually want? Like, what do you want to do today? You just want to sit there? That's definitely okay. Whatever you want to do, I'm here. If you have any questions, like treating them like a person first. I know it seems so simple, but I feel like totally on the same page, like, look at there first before we try to save the world and change everything for them. So,
Oh,
yeah.
totally. And yeah, because I mean, you're so, as a new, getting out of school as a new grad, it's like, I want to change your life. Like, I'm ready. And then it's like, no, you got to respect the person for who they
Yeah.
are, and yeah, so it's really understanding that and not taking it personally. Like that's been a huge learning curve for me. I used to take that so personally of I'm not doing a good enough job. Like I need to have a different approach. Oh, like am I too giddy for this person who's very like calm and I can come across like a lot sometimes. And yeah, so yeah, not taking that personally and really having that person, like you said, that person-centered approach is huge. By textbook, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But when you're
Yeah.
in it, you just want to put that cape on and be like, let me save you.
I feel like the other thing too is like remembering that they're a grown adult and most of the time, it depends where you're working. They're probably older than you and they've lived their entire lives. And I feel like as much as we all know that, I think it's easy to forget once, there's a diagnosis attached to the situation, and we automatically feel inclined to help them, but they're still an adult. We still have to treat them like an individual, and yeah, definitely a constant
100%.
reminder of that, right? So,
Yes.
yeah. And like, I mean, personally, for me, that's one of the biggest things that I try to advocate for in this profession is that dignity piece, and, treating them like the adult that they are. So what is
Mm.
one thing that you would say that you actively try to chase after for a TR?
Mm. I definitely would say inclusion.
Yeah.
Um, both on all levels, right? It's easy to think right away of, physical accessibility. That's one of the main things, like why I love doing community outings. Like
Yeah.
it encompasses everything about inclusion, right? So yes, on the physical level of teaching people what to look for and being mindful before you even enter a place. Like you need to know so many components of like where are you, if it's a restaurant, for example, like where are you actually going to sit? Like if you go to the washroom, is that even accessible?
Right.
Even just like the seating arrangements. Because now, because of COVID, I know some restaurants had a hard time because a lot of like their places were like in the ground. So it's not like things were movable. And then it's
Yeah.
kind of like realizing that you need more space. And even like the surface levels, and even if somebody has a walker, like if they're a ramp or anything like that. Um, but then also, you know, barriers of like attitudinal barriers, that seems to be a huge anxiety for people with new injuries. You know, invisible injuries are less, obviously they're invisible, so it's not a common thing that people, it's not their first anxiety, right? Because
Right.
they don't think people are, they might, based on the person, they might think people are staring at them. But I think people that require mobility aids, it's such a huge fear because people do stare,
Yeah.
and some people can be inappropriate, and that don't even understand how to act around somebody with any kind of disability. So it's just inclusion with how to treat somebody with a disability. And I do that all the time, like whether I'm working or not. Like I really want to be a strong advocate about that because it's just hit hard on for so many years, of people with disabilities just not being treated right and not feeling like they're being included in anything. So just on all levels, I think in the profession of TR is just seeing people as a whole, looking at a strength-based approach. And so that's inclusion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's such a massive education part attached to that too that we've really, really missed the mark on. Just in our school learning curriculum, like why is there not a specific course on how to support our, it seems so simple, but I feel like a lot of people really either don't understand it or, really battle with trying to figure out how to communicate with people that maybe can't talk back to you, or there's a big education piece that I feel like as TRs and as healthcare workers, like we really should continue to advocate for all the time, right?
Oh, 100%. And I've increasingly been keeping following people on social media that are strong advocates, that I've learned a lot of, just even with my own clients who, sometimes they come with other issues not related to their injuries. So I have people that come that have had a spinal cord injury for 20 plus years, and they're just there for other issues. And even just talking with people who've had the life experience of living with a disability is it's so different for everybody, right? Like we assume it should be a certain way, but it's just so different for everybody,
Yeah.
and even the language piece of, and when I study, obviously they say person centered. You don't say disabled, you say person with a disability. But I've spoken to so many people with disabilities that they're like, no, I'm disabled. Like, what's wrong with that term?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've learned to even just ask the individual, right? Or even just check myself when I say something, ask them, oh, was that the correct way to to address you? And then they'll tell you, right? Because
Yeah.
it is an awkward thing to address, but you don't know till you ask. And I think the more we do it, the more hopefully people will be more mindful and
Yeah.
mirror the same thing.
I find too with situations like that, it's we always think that, oh man, like if I ask them, like, do you think that they'll get offended? Do you think they'll go, they'll get mad? But in my experience, like when I first started at my job and I started, working with different folks with, a number of different disabilities, I was so afraid to try and know them better. When I actually did ask one gentleman that was visually impaired, hey, how much of the world are you able to see? Like, what is your vision? Can you explain it to me? And then, he was able to break it down. Okay, I can see shadows. I can see this. Like, in my mind, I thought that he was going to get so offended because, it is that touchy subject. But I feel like for the most part, people are willing to share. They're happy to share. And, it makes them feel good to help others help them, right?
Totally. And if they're not comfortable, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's like anybody, like if it's like just basic humans, right? Like if anybody asks me an inappropriate question, I'll just tell them that's not appropriate. Don't ask me that, right? Like it's just people are just so scared of, oh my God, and a lot of it is user common sense, but I think
Right.
that we just kind of have to remove that I don't have the word, but just kind of
The stigma.
remove that stigma. Yeah, remove that stigma around it and
Yeah.
just listen and act. Like with all the movements that have been going on, more important than ever for us to just listen and learn. And it's up to us to do the work to make it the most inclusive as possible. Like people are tired, and it's because of most of us have just been so neglectful or just so focused in our world that we don't even notice the small barriers that people can face.
Yeah.
Not only people with disabilities, like I say, the movement's going on, like people of color, like it's just we need to take part in that and
Yeah.
not put it on people to explain it to us. We need to do the homework.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it goes right along with the whole, advocating and speaking for people that cannot speak and, all along those lines. So it's great work.
Yeah.
Uh, what is one thing that you wish that you had known ahead of time that you would be doing in this profession? And I laugh.
Again, so
I
many
know
things.
there's so many.
Yeah. Um, if I think like specifically to the job I have right now, I so I don't know if this is a provincial thing. Like when I studied in Quebec, we didn't really, there's no programs for like TR assistance. So, it's assumed that you're just the rec therapist and you're doing your job. But like I know like like most provinces actually have like programs for rec, rec assistance and stuff like that. So that was brand new to me working with an assistant in my position. And so learning to work with an assistant, I had no idea how to do that. Like luckily I had my coworker who's like, well, normally, we have intervention plans, you work that way, and they help with prepping our equipment. Now because of COVID, it's just a lot of cleaning. But yeah, it's just funny. Like I know how to work with teammates, other rec therapists or other professionals, but I was like an assistant, like it was hard to be honest. It was hard for me to even just ask for help, like
Yeah.
because I felt like I was bossy. I don't know. I think it's just more of my personality. Like I don't like to feel like I'm an authoritative figure, and so when I'm like, do this, obviously I ask it in a nice way, but it was just so new to me. Like it was actually something that it was like something I wish I learned,
Yeah.
of okay, how do you delegate? Like, what should you delegate tasks with an assistant? And obviously, it's based on the individual, right? Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, so you kind of work around that. Um, but yeah, that was just like a huge learning curve for me because I was like, oh, I've never had to really delegate any of my tasks before.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what can I give? How do I work that out?
I tell
So
you what
it's
to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because my role is actually the rec therapist assistant. So I work under the TR at our Adult Day program, and I
Okay.
think she's watching this. So if you are, um, anyways, so my role is definitely a lot of the sideline stuff. So as far as technology goes, that's kind of my department is trying to take her crazy great ideas and throw them into the world of technology, implement them into, different ways that maybe she didn't have the resources to when she was my age, and working towards where she is now. So yeah, being on the other side of being the assistant, we don't mind being told what to do.
Right.
I definitely embrace as many opportunities as I can to try and do different things. So that would be, I guess, my advice to you is give us opportunities. We love it. But
Definitely.
that's
Yeah. Well, and I think ideally you have people like you in that position, right? Like that's what it should be all about. And I think, I hope people, that's the way they look at the job, right? Because
right.
that's what's in the job description, right? Is just doing the tasks that are asked, right? By the other therapist, which again, I think that's just more of a personality thing for me. But yeah, it just depends on the person, right? And I think that it's just never, yeah, it's never like a common thing that's discussed as a rec therapist. It's kind of assumed that, or
Yeah.
anybody is kind of assumed like you know how to work with an assistant, and you just throw ideas out there. But there's a lot of it. It's like you need to teach somebody. You need like you said, if somebody's giving you an idea, you need to present it in the right way for you to actually follow through with it, right?
Yeah.
So definitely, it's definitely like challenged me and like my communication skills to be
Yeah.
like as clear as possible.
Those aspects of like teamwork and responsibility that they really don't teach you in school either, like in your classes and everything. Like,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I didn't know you were an assistant. So
Yeah.
technology is huge too in our department. So I'm just curious, what kind of technology do you work with?
A lot of just like designing. We use a lot of Canva. I don't know if you utilize that program at all. So
Oh
we,
yeah.
especially throughout COVID, has made a massive difference on our programming as far as everything that we've been putting out. We haven't been open for our participants for over a year now, so we've been supporting them virtually over the phone because a lot of them don't have access to technology, nor do they have the support help to run, Zoom and everything like that. So despite being in this over a year, we're only now kind of getting the ball rolling on Zoom. But one of the things that we have been doing is giving them monthly activity kits. So in these packages, we're filling it up with goodies, we're doing puzzles, and it's all person-centered too, right? So if George, likes different types of sports or really loves baseball, all your programming is kind of based towards that, and you're adding in different things that are, that George really likes. So a lot of technology has come into designing different funky things. Just an example, we recently did the Blue Jays home opener. So we had like little marshmallow peanuts. We put like a little flag in it, and then there was like a poster to go with it and everything, right? So just a lot of those kind of, small ideas that we're able to take and then implement into something bigger that's meaningful and purposeful to them. And then around different themes, and Christmas was huge. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Those are great projects.
Yeah, we would love to be back in person, but COVID is just it's not looking good right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'm grateful for, I guess, is, in terms of inpatients, I'm able to still have that in-person client contact. So I know that's just so challenging with people. Where technology is great, but like you said, not everybody has access or the knowledge to use it. So it's that even more of a barrier, you kind of just have to adapt to not make that a frustrating piece of having to engage in something that people want to.
Yeah, it's been a really big learning process, that's for sure.
I think we've added like 10 years to our experience just from working through a pandemic.
Through the pandemic, like my resume looks so good right now.
Right? Yeah. The skill set developed in this last year is just amazing. Like I think, like I said, being an optimistic person, I would say fill that resume up with, everything just within a day is just crazy the amount of skills that are developed. Like it's pretty great. So kudos to everybody working through this pandemic, because our skill set is just,
by the end of this we're going to be pros, we'll all have Michelle had sent a question earlier asking some successful facilitation techniques or programs that you've run with neurological PTS/ALS patients.
I actually don't work a lot with ALS clients. We have a neuromuscular disease clinic, and that's usually my coworker that does these clinics. So unfortunately with that piece, I can't really touch on that. But I mean, group facilitation, I think it's really providing that safe space. I know we all know this from our education and all of that, but I think the most successful strategies that have worked for me is, and what I've learned, is summarizing a lot of what's being said, especially people, who I can speak to, at least people with brain injuries and who've had strokes. Obviously, I wouldn't put them in a group where I know they couldn't cognitively follow.
Right.
But having a clear mind even before you start the group, like what are these people's strengths? And so trying to shine light on that for that person. So even if somebody has communication issues, but if they comment on a specific topic that they fluidly, or like they feel comfortable sharing those specific words to that topic, I would often shine light on that for people to share on. Or it's so easy for people to kind of get off tangent and like, you kind of just say what comes to mind, or so that's where the summarizing piece definitely comes in handy. It kind of brings people back to why you were doing the group in the first place, or what's a key message you want people to know from that conversation. So I actually learned that from one of my coworkers. Like I was just observing her facilitation skills, and I was like, what is it that she's? Why is this so good right now? You know? And then it's like, oh, right, that's what's
Right.
totally. Yeah, and so I think that it's like anything, before you even implement something, you need to assess it, right? So assess your participants before, like, are they going to be a good match? And, you know, like I said, figuring out their strengths. And I think that prepares me as a facilitator to be confident. Obviously, like, I don't know why. Every time I like before a group, I do get a little bit nervous because you
Yeah.
know you're just like, oh, I wonder how this is gonna go. But then it's like I remind myself of, okay, well, I already know the goal of this group, or like I know these people, I know their strengths, and so that's what I found helpful in group facilitation. So hopefully that was a little helpful.
100%. Like I totally agree. Like keep your focus and your end goal on the goal, like what you're trying to accomplish. And if you can accomplish even part of that, then I think you got it. You made your impact, you did what you could, and yeah, you rolled with it. So I think that's, yeah, spot on
Totally.
for sure.
And you know, front loading participants on the group, right? So hopefully you've done that before somebody's even agreed to participating in the group. But right, but you know, if somebody had for some reason a certain goal in mind that they thought, you know, let's say our weekly group, it's very informal, like what we do. It's really meant for that socialization piece. And if people have communication goals, then we incorporate that in there. But that's the main goal, especially now because of COVID. Um,
Right.
Sometimes if we can incorporate some leisure education, why not? But that's not the primary goal. So if people are expecting education, oh,
There we go.
hi again.
We were talking about the joys of technology, I think, right?
Yeah, oh my God. The thing I love the most. So I'm so sorry.
That's
What
okay.
happened?
It's all good.
So when I said I had to plug in my phone, I had initially plugged it in my battery pack, which is clearly dead. So it just my phone just
Okay.
died on me.
No worries at all.
So sorry for cutting off like that.
It's all good. No, it's all good. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you Justin's last question. I believe it was
Mhm.
internships, and how doing your internship was across the province.
Oh, well, so I can only speak from my experience. Um, you know, in Quebec, I actually, yeah, I did my internship in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So it's pretty flexible. So wherever you really want to do your internship, you just apply. and then and
Nice.
then it's up to you if you want to travel there or not. So I was really in the need to explore a little bit. So
Yeah.
I actually did my internship in Halifax. I just went through the Nova Scotia Health Authority. I sent my application through there, and then my professor, super helpful. She just guided me through the application process, and then I did it there, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had because um, it's just so good to know how other provinces work,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And you know, and Halifax is really known for rec therapy from their program at DAL. So even just working under somebody who's certified was super helpful because I knew I wanted to get certified. So you have to do your internship under somebody who has that same certification.
Right.
And I found that super helpful because that means that, you know, they definitely have that knowledge base, but also you're hitting those criterias for your certification. So you already, it just helped me a lot to really see that process. I don't know if that's kind of the question you were going for, or just in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. He sent it in when you had requested for questions. So, yeah,
Okay.
that sounds really fun, though. I would love to travel for my internship as well. I'm hoping to go far. I'd love to go to Europe if that's an option, or do something like that. And hopefully, COVID's not around for when that time does come. But yeah, definitely very interested in traveling for that as well. That'd be good.
Oh yeah. I mean, the more experience anybody can get, the better, you
Yeah,
know, and I think it's just a perfect way to see how different everybody practices. How
yeah,
there's not just one mold and that's how you have to follow and that's how you have to practice. It's like everybody has so many ways to practice and they're all great. Like they're all satisfied clients. So we definitely have something to learn from that.
absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for meeting with me today. It
Of
was so good
course.
to talk
Thanks
to
for having me. I
you.
love the platform you're having, and
Oh,
I
thanks.
think these are just amazing conversations to have.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I saw that you did actually a live, I think it was in August to like November, and you like really had spread them out.
I
Um,
did.
I have 8, and I think I'm knocking out 3 next week, and then 3 more after that. So
You're going for
definitely,
it.
yeah, taking some mental notes that I could have spread it out longer. But you know what? Go big or
Totally.
go home. So I'm
Well,
looking
you're
forward
doing
to it.
great. Yeah, it's definitely, I definitely realized, so I did a 12-week series. So
Okay.
I'm definitely planning on doing that series again during
Yeah,
that same time frame. Because I love just having these conversations
for sure.
and just picking people's brains. And I think that even just doing one live a week, like where yes, I'm social, but it still takes energy, you
Yeah.
know, to do these things that like come the 12 weeks, I was tired. Like
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, Chelsea, you really pushed yourself here. So, you know, for even for yourself, you know, I think I even had to be okay with pushing some calls where we all know, you know, we're busy people, but then also shining light on our own mental health. You
Yeah.
know, I know I was so worried, like, oh my God, what are people gonna think if like I do I do when I think I canceled one week. So I was like, I had nothing planned that week.
Right.
And I had nothing planned that week. I was like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna have anything posted. I was like, people go on living their lives and nobody's judging you. You know,
Right.
I think,
Sure.
yeah, I think that's something else I kind of wanted to add to of just in general how COVID has hit all our mental health. Like,
Yeah.
I think that, like I went through pretty bad burnout
Yeah.
and I'm slowly getting out of it. Like I'm trying to do things that really light me up. Um, so yeah, like I think where clearly you're super passionate and you're a hardworking person, I would just say, yeah, like just watch out for your mental health too. I think it's
Yeah.
so easy to get locked up into that passion and dedication and just go 110%. And then it's like forgetting to refill yourself. So then you go in
Yeah.
complete empty mode. And it's like, it's hard to get out of, you know, I hope that doesn't happen to you. I just from experience,
Depressed.
I think it's just knowing yourself, right?
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
you know, if it's so different for everybody, and I think that that's been a huge struggle for me is I was trying to keep up with everybody else, and where I'm like, I don't even know this person's reality, you know, like for all I know, this person's working part-time and they're showing up all the time.
Yeah.
Where like I'm working 40 hours a week and I have my own personal life that I want to tend to. So
Yeah.
it's a hard medium sometimes just wanting to provide that information to people, but then also making sure that you're not like emptying yourself out for
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
I'm struggling with that right now. You know, it's a learning curve, but I think that we're such a supportive community that like no one's judging. No one, you know, any content put out there is great content. Even if it's once a week or once a month, it's good content, you know? So, yeah, no, what you're doing is awesome.
This weekend is definitely going to be like a pizza and chill and like refill that cup and hop back on
Totally.
Monday. Yeah,
Yeah.
super psyched for
I'm
it.
sending energy your way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being with me again, though. This was a really good.
Of course. Thanks for asking me, and I look forward to your next conversations.
All right, I'll see you then.
Awesome.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.